is recording now. Fantastic. We're about to all hit play on our episode on the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
So that was the Asian Caesar.
Correct. And I remember, I can't remember his name, but he was a regular background talent, and he was there all the time, even when I was.
His name is Robert Lee.
Oh, Robert Lee. That's right, Robert.
I thought maybe he was like Lane's dad at first when I first watched the series, and they just never showed him because they talked about Lane's dad, but they never clarified who that was.
Yeah, he's a very nice guy. Man, I'm realizing that like my early assessing of the brands that are used in the series is completely off base. Brands are everywhere.
I wonder if that's something that progressed as seasons continue.
I'm telling you, when I was doing my scenes in Dozy, there were no brands. There was just all kinds of weird stuff. I remember that like so clear.
Yeah, they might have gotten hit by one of the brands, huh?
Yeah, maybe, but I also think that there was another theory that we tossed out there, which was that perhaps those types of scenes where there are lots of brands, they fill most of the area with like nonsense stuff that isn't going to really read on camera, but that when something does need to read on camera,
like Fritos.
Yeah, like Fritos, something that's like really clear, then maybe they clear that particular thing. I mean, they definitely have to clear things with clearance department, but you know, I mean, having Fritos in the back of a scene, like that's probably not going to be something that's going to be difficult to clear. Getting back to the background talent thing, so I was saying Robert was. I remember him. I mean, he was on the show like deep. I mean, I would say maybe till the end. Really, really nice guy. And I always felt like he should have gotten a small role on the show. That he should have been graduated from background because he was just there. He was just so loyal, that guy. And there are, by the way, stories of background talent becoming parts of shows and then becoming like really like much bigger.
I was an extra in a movie this year. The Enormity of Life, if you guys see it. My small town's in it. My small town, there's merry-go-round, and I'm in the merry-go-round scene. That's awesome. We should watch The shins.
Nice.
This lady annoys me so much. The guidance counselor was out of focus and it was driving me insane. I feel like this whole conversation is emotional blackmail.
I'm not seeing the like socially awkward thing with Rory, to be honest.
It's because they don't see her at home, so they assume she doesn't talk to anybody.
She's not talking with anyone at Chilton. She's always alone there, just fighting with Paris sometimes. Her lunchtime is like her decompressing time. I mean, that's pretty fair. I don't know if I would want to drive a car that Kirk fixed.
Mary, this is like what we were talking about last night, the bubble. Can I get a timestamp, please?
9 minutes, 55 seconds.
Thank you.
This man gets on my nerves.
She's a single parent. She works. She doesn't have the time to be there at the school 24/7.
By the way, when we first heard him speaking, we were saying that he was kind of doing like maybe a pseudo British, but actually that he's doing what we call American Standard, which is just like very neutral American stage speak.
Wasn't there like a type of accent that people used to do in like the 30s and 40s called like transatlantic or something?
Yeah, I think that's sort of an evolution. Like the American Standard is sort of an evolution of that, like kind of
Okay.
upper crust American speak. Wait, so these are not like the Paris crew, is it?
No.
Whole different level.
So I have a feeling that these people are like above the Paris thing. Like they have higher status.
Did you see that? Slow stop.
Yes. Okay, there we go. Oh my god, that's great.
This whole episode is so great. You will like it.
I'm realizing that I geek out about all of this Chilton stuff. Like I'm realizing that these may actually be.
Oh, pay attention for a second.
That's so funny.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just thought you should hear the reasoning behind all that.
My favorite quote from that was, "God, you're like a pop-up book from hell."
I like that one too.
I love how nasty Paris was to her in the last episode with Max, but now is expecting Rory to be super cool to her.
And that Rory doesn't see that as like prime blackmail material to get what she wants out of Paris.
Yeah, exactly. I love that line.
These little mom groups are real.
My mom was part of the PTA.
But they don't wear matching sweatshirts.
Apparently not. No, Emily was teasing. Yeah, that's Emily messing with her. I was a head parent, or a head room mother. They'll make matching t-shirts, though. I never got a t-shirt. The younger mom is Nicole Leggett, right there.
When she said used to work at Saks for a split second, I thought she was saying that she got fired for stealing that ring.
That's great that that's what you would think. was Charles in Charge. I couldn't remember what she was from.
Charles in Charge, and also she was in Baywatch.
Yeah, and Baywatch. Oh yes, I never really watched Baywatch.
She literally walked her way onto that one.
Somebody's like dumping, they're blowing leaves off from somewhere. Oh my gosh, this is going to be very fun.
What's the Waffles Very Happy reference? Is that a pop culture one?
No, Rory said that we should call her Waffle because it's more of a fun name for models.
Gotcha. I must have been talking to T. Hi, C.
This is definitely one of my favorite Rory episodes, for sure. Who wrote this episode?
That guy's in another episode later. And if anybody watched Young Sheldon, that's the dad.
That's what I was going to say.
Does anybody know who wrote this episode?
I'm looking.
I was looking too. Hold on. Made me sure mentality.
Yeah. You can feel it.
And Joan White. So Janet says Joan Bender Weiss as well.
Yes.
And the premise of Desperate Housewives is born. Backfired.
I love that dress.
That's such a great Emily Lorelai.
He's having so much fun.
I love this. Emily is just loving it.
Luke is having a field day.
Michelle too.
She had to say it.
But it's true.
I mean, yes, but she didn't have to point it out.
I thought that moment was sweet. I love all of these moments in episodes where Emily and Lorelai find some common ground.
I love that they're coming to kidnap her, but she has to pay for the breakfast.
It seems fair. You think that they're saying that she has to pay for the whole breakfast? I thought it was just like she has to pay for her own meal.
Like Rory's, but these are supposed to be really rich girls. They can't afford to give breakfast to the people they kidnap.
It's the ransom.
Oh, right, it's the ransom.
I've been kidnapped by my friends before.
And that's Madeline Zima, who is from The Nanny.
And then later she was on Cinderella Story.
Californication.
Well, no, I was saying a Cinderella Story.
Poor Paris.
You can see how much pressure Paris is getting from her family to fit in, and it's so sad.
Here comes a really bright Rory scene. So what was the money for?
I think they would have probably gone to breakfast if they had gotten through this.
The pubs exist for 50 years and nobody caught them before.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking, and I was also thinking, like, how did he know that they were there?
Yeah, in the middle of the night, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it felt very, very written.
Well, what school must have security? Bell girl, bell girl. She did become part of the Yaya sisterhood eventually. Just not as Rory.
And the sisterhood of the traveling pants.
I just like that we have a bag boy and a bell girl.
Oh, here we go.
Jealous much?
I was just about to say the
This is
same
definitely
thing.
something that we're going to be talking about. This is a great scene.
Did they ever eat their lunch at this school? So she actually started the club she wanted, after all.
I loved that episode.
I so thought you would.
I loved that
It's one of my
episode.
favorites.
I mean, easily one of my favorites. You know,
My
I
top 15.
was actually thinking about it last. It was it last episode where I was asked about favorite episodes in general. I think that at some point, maybe we'll do it during one of the hiatuses. I would love to just go back to just spend time going through every episode briefly, like name of the episode, and then just like for a few minutes just talk about the episode. And I would love to just like give my impressions of like how I feel about the episode thinking back on it now.
Like the ones that we've watched so far?
The ones that we've watched so far. I mean, like if we did it in a hiatus, like in this next hiatus, for example, we would do like every episode from season 1 and season 2. I mean, and we wouldn't spend long on it, but I would just like, it would just be like a quick refresher of what happened in the episode. And then I'll just like let you know how I feel about the episode now in hindsight. Like if it still sticks with me or if I've sort of forgotten it or it's kind of faded a bit. I have a feeling that this episode is going to last for a very long time. And I actually think that one of the main reasons why I love this episode so much is the puffs. I just love that like new little part of the Gilmore Girls story world being kind of opened up, and I love this whole idea that it's like this really old club that's existed for generations, and they've all even though that was kind of ridiculous that like they've all been in that office ringing that bell, that this particular group happens to be the one that gets caught. But just there's something so fun and just world building about the puffs and about this whole episode. I loved it. And that, is there a meme or something? I would imagine that little puff poem is like a big thing in the fandom. Is it?
What do you mean as a big thing?
I don't know. Like, is it on T-shirt? Is it on T-shirts? Is it like
I think so.
It probably is. I haven't heard too much like about it. Like I don't know if it's like as popular as like some of the other.
I want a T-shirt or a coffee mug or something with that poem on it. two F's at the end.
It's the height of creative thinking, isn't it?
It's so funny. What is it? It's two F's at the end. A P to start.
P to start, to S at the end, and a U in between.
And then U in between is the most ridiculous thing ever.
I just got a children box. Mary, who's like selling Gilmore Girl stuff, had a Gilmore Girl children themed box, and there was like a little bell inside with puffs on it. So that I love that too.
Yeah, this episode's gonna stick for sure. I mean, so many things about it. I love the fashion show and all the stuff with Emily and Lorelai, and just it was a blast.
Rory finally stood up for herself.
Yeah.
You want to open up the couch?
Oh yeah. Whoops, sorry. Opening up the couch. Couch is open. Please join us.
Hello.
Hey, Amy. How are you?
I'm good.
Hi, friend. Been a while. Hey, Aim.
Hey.
Felt weird.
So,
Glad you made it this time. It was strange just being in the audience. I was like, this is not right. That's how I felt.
Hi, everyone.
The other episodes, I was like, I don't want everyone to hear the blustering wind as I try to talk.
Last night, by the way, for folks who were not with us, was a pretty epic post-show discussion. Would you say?
I'd say that was one of our best.
That was great. That was a great one. Tasha, did you make it to the point where we were talking about Chris and Lorelai?
Oh, I was part of that.
Okay. No, I remember that you had to leave. You had to leave early.
Yeah. Did I miss anything more after I left?
Well, we just kept talking about it. It was really interesting.
Okay.
This episode obviously doesn't have all of that kind of juice, but I still, I don't know. I just really loved it. That dynamic with Rory and Paris, and how just Rory is constantly going out of her way to help Paris, despite how just awful Paris has been to her.
Rory understands that Paris gets a lot of pressure from her family. That's not really Paris. That's everyone is pushing her, so she probably understands her, so she wants to help her and tries again. And she's a really kind person, so she just tries it again.
I think it goes back to that conversation we had a few episodes ago or more about the strength, that scene within the Gilmore Girls. And we had a conversation about whether Rory had that level of strength as an individual. And I kind of feel like she had even more strength than her grandmother or mother, because she has the knowledge and restraint and compassion for others to know when to speak up or not,
Agreed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's funny because I was actually thinking about that in this episode, about how Rory is such a timid girl with these really loud, brash, women all around her, but that timid demeanor doesn't really reflect her strength, because her strength really shows in her ability to talk with Francie, and just even there at the end, that whole speech with the headmaster, we really see that Rory's strength is it's a calmer, quieter strength, right? It's her. She doesn't compromise with the things that she feels are right.
Right, yeah. I don't necessarily think that strength means louder, or that discernment with your asserting your will, maybe but more along the lines of just having that strong character. That's me.
Yeah. So by that logic, because I've heard over the course of the past few weeks that we've been watching, I've heard people say that they feel Lorelai is a very strong character, but by that logic, Lorelai would be a weaker character, comparatively to Rory, because Lorelai very often can't control her emotions, and although is very forward and strong-willed, is weaker when it comes to those types of things.
She's less grounded than Rory.
I think Rory's definitely, and this is me still not trying to spoil things, because we'll see how Rory develops over the next few seasons. I kind of feel like Lorelai has said that Rory's the type of person that I don't think she's a people pleaser, but she doesn't want to hurt people. But I think Rory brings that fiery kind of Lorelai-esque out in her when she needs to, because if you remember, when she was late for her test because the deer hit her, she went off and then went off on Paris, and then her mother after that chimed in and stuff like that. So I feel like Rory brings it out when she needs to. So
I just think it's an interesting discussion, you know, like what makes a character strong, you know, and you know, I wonder, well, first of all, you know, whether strength in a character is even really as important as nuance in a character, right? But just this idea of like strength, what do we typically in shows equate to strength? I think that it's easy to see a character like Lorelai who kind of does things her way and does impose her will on others, and I'd like to see that and to immediately say, oh, well, that's a strong character, that's a strong woman, you know. But when we see these types of actions from Rory, I think it like kind of flips the whole idea of what is strength in a character, what is strength in a female character. I just think it's an interesting.
I think we've seen throughout those that Rory fights for the things that she wants. Like, she doesn't speak up as often as Lorelai may, but when she wants something, she tries and gets it. So when she was first interested in Dean, she didn't mind telling her mother that maybe we shouldn't go to Chilton. And like when she wanted that way from her mom, she went all the way to Emily. Like, she does find her strength.
You cut out there, Mary. I think you hit your mute button in the middle of your sentence.
Sorry, I ended with she does find her strength in quieter ways, but it's still a strength.
Yeah, but I'm even going one step further and saying, like, you know, because Lorelai also fights for the things that she wants, right? But the way that they do it is on interest. There's just a difference in how they do it, and you might like see sort of that kind of harsh, brash, I'm just taking it as, oh, that person is really strong. But the way that Rory often goes after the things that she wants is in a much subtler way. I don't know.
You and I are saying the same thing in different ways.
Yeah.
That's okay,
yeah. And also, it's also like, I think it's important to look at the things that they do go after and that they do want, you know, and I think that's also sort of a part of the discussion of like strength, right? Because, you know, I mean, I can't really off the top of my head come up with some of the things that Lorelai typically wants and then goes after, but
they want the man.
Yeah.
I isn't so strong in the first, like, till now. She has so many flaws. She's behaving often like a teenager. I don't think, for me, at this moment, Lorelai is such a strong person.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at. It's like, you know, just like the demeanor, the voice, you know, that for me, that's not really like that's not necessarily a show of strength. It's like kind of like what's behind that. Like, what does she want? What's she trying to get?
It shows like the talk with Luke about not dating other people. It's like she's jealous, but it shows it's not a strong person. She's not sure about it. She doesn't want to tell him how she feels, but she forbids him to meet other persons. That's not a strong woman.
Right. That's sort of what I'm getting at. Like you could look at that like, wow, she really had some nerve there to you know, tell this person who they should or shouldn't date. But it's sort of what's behind that the fact that she needed to do that for her own insecurity, versus Rory choosing to help, doesn't have to, choosing to help Paris in the moment because she knows that's important to Paris, doesn't help her in any way. But she has no problem talking to Francie.
Gotcha.
So, thank you. So I feel like, obviously throughout, like, the last, sorry, I'm in my bathroom, there's an echo. Throughout, like, the last, like, well, season 1, and then we're, what, 7 episodes in now? I feel like we've seen, like, some, like, strength within, like, Lorelai, because, I'm not a single mom, but, so I don't know what it's like, but I feel like you have to have some strength to be a single mom and to be independent like she was, and to, like, not want to ask for help and stuff like that. So she is a strong person. It's just sometimes, like, we don't really see it too much because she's all wrapped up in, like, her world and things like that. And I feel like Lorelai's the type of person that is gonna need, like, more time to, like, evolve and things like that. And without spoiling it, I think we just need to, like, give her kind of a chance, because there are people in this
Absolutely
world
not.
that
Not
need-
going to give her a chance. No, I'm kidding. Of course, we're going to give her
I'm
a chance.
kidding, not. But yeah, I think, like, there's, like, a lot of people in this show, and we'll see as, like, they show up, that, like, they need, like, more than just, like, one season or more than just, like, a couple episodes to kind of show their strength, because she has a lot of it. We just don't know yet. Well, I do.
Yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of moments. I mention them every time they happen, where I'm like, "Whoa, Lorelai, that's super impressive," you know, and those to me are her moments of strength.
Like when she
I guess
steps up to her mother
what I'm saying is that it's easy to view a character who pushes their way into situations as that's strong. Maybe I couldn't do that, right? But looking past that at the intentions of why they do so, I think is a better judge of their strength. And Lorelai is very often being led by her own, petty needs in the moment. That doesn't take away. That certainly doesn't take away from, the greater strength that she had in, and this is sort of responding to some folks on Instagram Live who are making the great point that, look, she's a single mother, raised a girl, all by herself, who turned out absolutely amazing, and that's certainly a show of strength. But
not happen all the time.
Yeah, but it's more, it's more this, like, just this idea of, like, when we talk about characters having strengths, very often, we are very often on television, strength is sort of determined by, like, the character's, in the moment demeanor. And both Emily and Lorelai have that in your face demeanor, and Rory doesn't. Rory is a very timid person, and even just the word timid itself seems to sort of denote like weakness. But in fact, you look past all of that at their actions, at the things that they want in the moment, and how they get what they want in the moment. Rory seems like a considerably stronger character, in those sort of moment-to-moment interactions with people, whereas Lorelai does seem often led by her insecurities and her sort of petty wants. I think shown really well there at the end with the scene between her and Luke.
Hey, John, thinking about herself more than anything in that scene with Luke.
Very much so. Hey, John, I have to go, but I do want to kind of, like, talk about this more, so can I DM you on Twitter later about it?
Of course not. No. What do you mean? Of course you can.
Alright, well, I'll be back full-fledged tonight. I won't be leaving early, so I'll be back tonight, guys.
Okay, tonight at 7?
Yes.
Awesome. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.
Hey, Tasha.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, guys. I think it's security. Like Rory, this is a great episode for Rory because she's not an insecure person for the most part. You know, I feel like she has some general teenage insecurity, but for the most part, I think it's even said in an episode, I don't even remember which, but you know, Lorelai knows how well adjusted she is. You know, she's super well adjusted. And I love this episode because the guidance counselor kind of like points out like a reason to be insecure. So she gets a little off kilter, but I think her strength comes from, you know, that deep sense of security in herself and her friends and her life. And it's like at the moment at the office where she's just like, hold on a second. Like this is, I was willing to go along with this until it really deeply went against my convictions as a person. And, you know, it's like she's willing to invite Paris. She's willing to be kidnapped. She's willing to do all these things because it's like, whatever. And it doesn't like mess with her security as a person. But like once it's kind of like, hold on a second, you know, that's when she blows up. It was the same situation with the test and the being raped. You know, she is kind of like, look at me, I'm following all the rules and doing everything I can do, and I feel great about it. And you know, when she's sort of confronted with something that goes against her convictions, I think that's when she has to kind of break through and be vocal and be strong in the moment about it. But I think her strength is literally always there.
Yeah. Jasmine, I noticed that you were starting to speak, and I also noticed that this is one of the first, or it should be, I think, the first couch that you've come up on. Did you have something that you wanted to say?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Thanks for having me.
Of course. And just by the way, just to remind folks, and especially new folks who are on the couch, if there's ever a moment where you would like to speak, but you're having a hard time finding the space to get in, we flash our mics slowly.
Word, got it.
That's just sort of like raising your hand, like hi. Just when we get a chance, I'd love to say something.
Here's me. Here I am. I would like to be next. This is a really intriguing conversation. Thanks for having all this, John. It's very exciting to me. I grew up watching Gilmore Girls and played a big part of my life. And on this conversation of strength, I feel like it's very intriguing to me as I'm a writer myself. And I think what is similar between Lorelai and Rory is resiliency, right? And we're talking about two very hardworking women that are both incredibly resilient to the circumstances that they're put in or choose to be in themselves. And it's interesting to think about what needs to be emphasized on a character and what is a given and therefore doesn't need to be emphasized. I think the thing about Lorelai that we see at the very top of the series, right, is that, and up until this point, is that she, you know, is the executive manager of this inn. She's a single mother. She kind of runs this town, right? She's like kind of like the celebrity of Stars Hollow in a way. She knows everybody. She does everything. She's highly participates in everything that goes on. And so that like drive and resiliency is built into the storyline of her character. So the thing that gets to come out about her is the way in which she does small things, right? Like John, you were saying early, like following petty wins or things like that is what comes out. Where with Rory, when we're looking at a younger person, the starker contrast is around the moments in which she stands up, where we see her finding her own strength as someone who's coming of age. And additionally, the other thing I wanted to say was that in terms of like household structure, right? The reason why siblings are different from each other and the way that people are different from their parents is kind of because, in my opinion, when you enter into a family, right, when you're born, someone takes up this space, you know, space A, and what's left is space B, and so you fill in that way. And that's where we get this really beautiful balance between Lorelai and Rory, where we see Lorelai, who's much more about time and like a cyclical energy and pace and this like witty repartee constantly. And you see Rory, who's a much more reflective character, who can play that game and does, and you know she's doing it internally all the time, but she doesn't express herself that way because she grew up with a mom who was so intense and so over the top that she became quiet because that was the space for her to fill. And so, like, who these characters are, of course, we know people, we understand people by how they get what they want, right? And that's how we see the differences between Lorelai and Rory. But the thing that I think is very similar between both of them is their resiliency within the given circumstances.
I want to riff on that for a second, because that's, first of all, thank you. That was super, super cool, super insightful. And it got me thinking, okay, what happens? Because I think I agree with you here. This idea that, like, we fill in the space that is open. I think that for the most part that's true. I also think that happens, you know, in our relationships with others. You know, I mean, and sometimes we shift who we are in order to fit the slot that is open in one circle of friends that we may have, as opposed to another. So, like, I actually feel like I sometimes change. I'm a different person within one circle of friends than I am in another, because the slot that was open for me in one is that, and then in the others is that. So totally agree with you on that, and just in general love that idea. What happens though when you as a person don't feel like you want to take the role that's open? Because that is a good I think way to sort of describe what happened with Lorelai and Emily, and why Lorelai may have actually wanted to leave, or at least a part of it, because perhaps with such a strong-willed mother, right, the only slot that was available was a slot more like what Rory took, but Lorelai's absolutely unwilling to take it.
Absolutely agree with you on that. Yeah, that's so interesting. And so where do the forces where are they not able to meet each other, right? And I wonder, so like, for this whole conversation, we've been comparing Lorelai and Emily as closer to each other than Lorelai and Rory, right? At least in, like, headstrong qualities. And I think that that's true, but look at how the two, like, how the differences manifest, right? Emily's procedure was around, like, what was right, what society deemed as your responsibility. When a woman gets pregnant, you get married, right? Like, this is the whole premise. And how, like, Emily enforced social structure and rules of this high society, and Lorelai rebelled against that. Whereas, like, Lorelai is just as forceful in her stubbornness to conform, and how those dualities constantly rub against each other for the whole series up until now, at least.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good conversation. I love this. I mean, I feel like that's sort of the heart of, in a lot of ways, I feel like that's sort of the heart of what this show is about. You know?
Yeah, that parent-child relationship and it's interesting to see that the assertiveness that is exhibited from Emily is different than the assertiveness that is exhibited from Lorelai. Like, both father figures or parental figures are pushing their ideals on their child of what they deem to be acceptable, you know, but the approaches are different. So it's interesting to see how that affects the children in different ways too.
Yeah, like, what do we? It's really interesting. It gives me, like, this whole discussion gives me a slightly skewed, but still, I mean, it's still in the general ballpark of how I've been feeling about the series. But suddenly, like, I have, like, a slightly, like, slightly refracted perspective on it all, and how these all three of these women are they all have their own view on how they should live within society, and what is the appropriate means to engage with society, and they're all in their own way going after that, and their strengths kind of, the will that they have is just as strong, all three of them, in that context, in the context of what do we think is the right way to live.
And do you know what I think is really interesting, back on the subject of strength, with Rory, right? In what ways does Rory push back against her mother, but that are discreet, right? So when we talk about, like, Emily enforces high society rules, Lorelai enforces quote-unquote rebel rules, for lack of a better, phrasing. And then, we see, what is it, like the third episode of season 1, where Rory goes to the golf course to play.
Yeah, with her grandfather, yeah.
Right? And she's like, no, I liked it. Right? And as the seasons, the series starts to go forward, how you see Rory start to, move back into this world that Lorelai tried so hard to leave. But John, I think I have to agree with you in the end that Rory is a stronger character than Lorelai, because the way in which she does it is so quiet that there's not anything for Lorelai to really push back against, because all of her decisions are motivated by deep logical thought processes, opposed to Lorelai's more instinctiveness, which can be debunked by quote unquote logic.
I think in general, I don't love, and that might be where a lot of this is coming from me. In general, when we talk about writing and we talk about characters, I don't love the word strong in as a descriptor of a character, because it's such a bland word that it means so many different things to so many different people, and so what I was mostly getting at is strong. We usually equate that to somebody who's just loud and pushy, but when we're talking about these characters and how they get what they want, I think that this, I think that what you're saying is more that Rory is a savvier character. She's smarter. She knows how to get what she wants in ways that are often more successful than her mother, right? And I guess you could say that makes her stronger. Ultimately, I don't need my characters to be strong. I want them to be multifaceted and interesting, and I want to see flaws, and I want them to be vulnerable and all of that. So I think that in general, I tend to push against this idea of strength in characters generally, but also going riffing off of that. And I mentioned this before with Rory. It isn't just about her gravitating more towards that world, but really what she finds. It's this idea of what does Rory find important about engaging the world, right? And so in that moment, she wants to go to the golf course. I don't necessarily think it's because I'm just totally in love with the world that they're living. I think that part of it was she wants to connect to her grandfather. She sees that might be important to him. That Rory is often led by what she sees. When she sees that something is important to somebody else, that often leads her in her decisions. Another really good example is, I mentioned this before, there's the scene where Lorelai and Rory are in the kitchen and they're talking about Paris, and they're kind of kind of joking about her and like, you know, sort of laughing about her, and Lorelai's really taking the lead on the scene while she's hearing about this girl, and is sort of leading all of the snark. And at one point, Rory sort of stops and is like, I kind of feel bad for her, you know? And you can tell that Lorelai doesn't totally approve of that mode of thinking. Like, it's almost like, wait, no, come on, let's keep snarking it up here, you know? Whereas Rory doesn't really want to. She'd rather think about, you know, why Paris is this way, and that ultimately leads Rory in all of the interaction that she has with Paris, despite how horrible Paris can be to her.
For me, it's like every person has some like strengths in themselves. It depends on what you want or whatever you can do, but every person has strengths. Nobody has no strengths. But for Rory, I think it's important to be calm to get things. If she would be strong-willed too, it would like be total conflict with her mother all the time. So I think she learned being calm, saying something. If you really want to have something, it's more important, give her more the things she wants. So I think it's like in reaction to Lorelai having this calmness, and it works for her. So it's a good thing.
So I think that a lot of it is control. Like, I think that all these women need to have control of their whole lives, and none of them are willing to let go. So I think that's not necessarily a strength. I think, well, I've been a single mom, or I was a single mom for a few years, and I know how you still feel like you have to be in control of the situation. I have my son 80% of the time, you know, and I find myself trying to control that sometimes. And now that he's like 16, I don't as much. But it's I think that's not. I think being able to let go and let people help you is a strength. And in that, I feel like they're all weak in some way. They just want to have complete control of all of their. And I think women are just generally like that. They want to be able to control all aspects of their life. They don't want to ask for help.
One thing that I was thinking about when we were talking about Rory and her seated interest in going and exploring this new world with her grandparents and, you know, that type of lifestyle, to see the character changes in Lorelai, that at first in season 1 she was very resistant to it, whereas like now you can kind of see her almost enjoying it a little bit, and that's why her Lorelai's mother was like getting a little bit excited about the idea, because she was like, well, look at you, you know, you're putting together this event, hosting it at your work, and, you know, you're excelling in it. And it's just kind of like a tongue-in-cheek of like, wow, look at you embracing something. But I think that's the only reason why she's doing that. One, more so, is because she wants to have that maintained connection with her daughter. And, you know, this is part of her letting go of that control in a sense.
By the way, somebody on Instagram Live just reminded me that I actually, not too long ago, in one of these discussions, was talking about how I thought Rory was actually a sort of like a weak character compared to, or weak-willed compared to her mother and her grandmother. I don't know if any of you remember that, but now I seem to be sort of flipping the script where I'm thinking, I think Rory is like a extremely powerful character, just very understated in her approach to things. It's just fun so far, you know, to just have these ideas of who these characters are, and then have all of that flipped on you. I don't know if that's like partly the show, the writing, or if it's just, you know, the more you talk about it, the more you get to know these characters, the more you understand them. Yeah, I don't know how much of that is like purposeful in the writing, or how much it's just me like learning about them more. And I just didn't really spend enough time with her to see all of that stuff.
she's a wiser soul. I think she's an older soul, and I think that she's more grounded than they are, and she's still learning because she's still a teenager. But I feel like that's how some kids are kind of born, and they did it, and they just kind of float through life. And I feel like that's how she is. She doesn't have to create a ruckus to stand out. She can just be. She's not loud like her mom, and she doesn't need that because she's just smart, and she's level-headed, and she probably keeps her mom grounded to an extent.
I think that it's neat to see how like the characters develop and grow and change. It's kind of like the people in our lives that in order to like maintain relationships with people, you know, you have to constantly explore and get to know the people as they themselves are going through life and changing and growing as individuals. I think it's kind of neat how your perspective, Dawn, is like, you know, growing and experiencing different things as the characters grow.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see them grow even more. I wonder how Rory will be in the revival series. Like, she's much older. Like, will she have grown into the ideal version of what we're seeing here, or will she become something different, or will she have become something different? Like, I'm already thinking about that. Of course, like, of course, had I been watching the show back then, I wouldn't have known that there was a revival coming. But maybe then it would have just been me saying, I wonder how this character will be when she's, you know, in her what would she be in her early 30s?
Yeah, she's 32 in the revival, which is the same age Lorelai was at the beginning of season 1.
Right. So, like, you know, at this point, I'm asking myself, like, who's she going to be when she's in her 30s? Like, you know, will she have, like, will all of this have matured into, like, a really awesome, super grounded, super together person, or is this more reflective of her as a teenager, and when she gets older, she's different, maybe more like her mother?
Okay, but that's interesting. I'm going to stop you right there, John, because in your head, for her to be successful, she can't be like her mother?
No, I'm not saying successful. I'm saying, like, will she? Well,
put together.
Right? Well, but I don't. But I guess I really do think that her mom's not put together. I think that, like, her mom has been successful in a variety of things, but I think that her mother. I do think that her mother is sort of stunted a bit. Like, you know, we've said it before. Like, she's, you know, she behaves like a teenager. She's petty, often petty as a teenager. But she's successful. I'm not saying will Rory be successful. I have this feeling that Rory will be quite successful in life. But it's more like, I'm just more saying, like, will her personality be the same? Will she be this, like, understated, or when she gets older, will her personality start to look a little bit more like her mother's and her grandmother's? I don't know.
Well, I think that I think that it's summed up nicely.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, how you doing? It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks, but anyway.
Good to see you back.
Thanks. I'm coming up on my half marathon next weekend, so after that, I will be much more available. No more 5:45 a.m. runs for a while. I think, I don't remember, my brain is failing me right now. Somebody says to, I think it's Suki at some point, is she usually this scattered? And they're talking about Lorelai. And Suki says she's the most stable person I know. So I don't think that anyone would really say that Lorelai has her stuff together.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you all know what Rory's like when she's in her 30s. I don't. and now this is just this question that's kind of come in my mind, like, will she stay that like sort of grounded, timid, really knows how to get what she wants in understated ways, or will something be very different?
Well, it's not really a spoiler per se, because it's kind of apparent in any of the trailers for the revival.
I haven't seen the trailers for the revival.
Okay.
I've only seen no, actually, you know what? Because I went to the premiere, so I saw one of them. But I
Okay, I mean,
I
she
don't really
doesn't
remember it that
exactly
much.
have her life together, but I think that
Well, let's definitely not talk too much about that, just because
right,
there might be some folks in the audience.
I think that in the future it will kind of like make her reprioritize her life and maybe give her something more concrete to kind of center her life around, because she's just kind of aimless in the revival.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, I definitely don't want to talk too much about revivals, but I just in general, trying to, like I said, trying to put aside anything that I know or anything that I've seen. I do just wonder who she will grow into. And then that just in general makes me wonder, like, how much are we like our teenage selves?
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's like a really interesting point, John, about teenagers and TV series in general, and how do we write them? And because even like I'm thinking about like what change we've seen in Rory up until this point, right, close to the beginning of season 2, and I don't know if there's like, we see her overcome a lot and deal with external change a lot, but it's not until these really big momentous things happen to her, like being late for the test, the Puffs thing that we just watched, and then probably Dean showing up, where she has some real conflict that she needs to overcome, and we watch her do that. And I was also reflecting on like how,
although, by the way that she handles the task is actually kind of, it goes against a lot of what we're saying here.
It's all about Lorelai.
Well, no, I mean, when it's like, I'm saying, like, the way that Rory handled that moment is like, completely like off the rails, like, not in any way.
Teenage hormones.
Yeah. And by the way, this whole question of like, who will Rory become? It's sort of similar to how I feel about when I think about like who was Lorelai when she was young. Like I have the same thought kind of going through my head that I have about Rory, but in the opposite direction. Like I'm thinking like what was Lorelai like when she was 16? Was she like, was she similar to herself now? If she was, were there any things about her that don't exist anymore now that she's an adult? I wonder what those looked like.
I would totally watch a prequel about young Lorelai. 100%.
Yeah, I just wonder what that teenager would look like. I'm more interested in like what are the things that like are completely unexpected, like that we wouldn't imagine her character to be based on what we know about her now. The things that she's shed of herself, or the things that she's like new traits and personality, new personality traits that she's acquired over the course of the past, 15 years or so. Because I do believe, I really do think that there are, or maybe I'm just like basing off myself, like, we are different as young people. There are a lot of aspects to who we are, like as people, that change from that age.
Well, each chapter in our life teaches us different things, and so we just keep evolving. But some things stay the same. Your mistakes stay the same, usually, unless you grew up really in a crappy situation, maybe.
Somebody just mentioned even on Instagram Live that, like, Emily once said that Lorelai was the brightest, or no, actually it was well, I don't know if Emily said it. I can't remember if Emily said it, but like I remember her father said it. You know, that she was the best, best and brightest of her class, like Lorelai, right? So like that just reminds me of Rory. So I'm trying to imagine somebody with all the like neuroses and like and brash, like snarky. I'm trying to imagine what that looks like as the best and brightest of their class, right? Because the only thing that I can kind of imagine is somebody like Rory being the best and brightest of their class. So I wonder how much of the Lorelai we know now, how much of that existed when she was 16 years old.
Well, we've talked about Lorelai, I think, in the past being kind of like a larger-than-life character. And I think that she's always had that, like, extroverted, engaging personality. And I think that she was probably one of those teenagers that was very smart in school, and everything came pretty easily to her. I mean, like, Rory's super intelligence comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
They say sometimes, like, if the children, like, if they have, like, things come to them easily and everything like that, sometimes they develop atypically, where, like, socially, emotionally, they may not mature as fast as their academics. So, I mean, it is possible that, like, she could have had some of those, like, childish tendencies, and they may not have exhibited themselves the same way as, like, Rory's overachieving qualities,
Yeah. I'm actually going to have to jump here, but this was really good, a really, really great post-show discussion, and coupled with a really good episode. That I didn't feel that way about last night's. I certainly enjoyed it, but I wouldn't have put last night's episode really high up on my list, whereas this episode is like really, really high up, like close to the top, and followed by a really great discussion.
I remember distinctly, just before you go, I remember distinctly when I was a kid and I wasn't allowed to watch Gilmore Girls because I wasn't old enough. My sisters used to tape them off of TV, and the only tape that we had for years, it was just a VHS tape labeled in purple marker, the Puffs episode.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, this is fun. Just like that whole part of the world now, man, I hope that they keep doing that. I hope that Puffs don't go away. Like, I hope that Puffs are something that we see, that we kind of get to, peek into that world that little part of the world every once and again. And that it's not just like created like as just a one-off thing. But that it's at least some little corner of the world that stays established. But that's just me. All right, I'm going to be back tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you, all of you for joining me, and all of your amazing insight. Hopefully, some of you will be able to join me again tonight at 7. I know the international folks are probably not going to be able to, but we will be back tomorrow as well at 8 a.m. And hopefully I'll see some of you across the pond.
Are we doing tomorrow morning? Because
wait. Tomorrow morning we're not, are we? No, we're not doing tomorrow morning. Thank you.
We're not doing anything tomorrow, right?
We are not doing anything tomorrow. Tomorrow is Mother's Day, so tomorrow is.
Okay.
I'm giving the full day is going to be for me is going to be with Babsy, and for all of you, I hope will be with your mothers.
Have happy first Mother's Day to her.
Thank you very much.
Happy Mother's Day.
I will let her know. No, it's going to be that's going to be a fun day.
Enjoy it. Enjoy for sure. Have a great day with her.
So we'll be back tonight at 7, and then we'll be back again on Monday at 7.
Yeah, see you next week.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Oh, wait, hold on.
Next week, isn't that the weekend off?
I'm actually making everybody moderators in the event that anyone here wants to stick around and continue talking. This is something that I always do, and I just forgot to do that. I always make everyone a moderator who is up here on the couch with us, and very often folks just want to stick around and hang out with one another and chat sometimes about parts of the show that they were holding their tongue on because they didn't want to spoil me. So
just a quick thing. Next weekend for the internationals is the weekend we're off until Sunday night, right?
I think so. Wait. Oh yeah,
yes, that's right.
That's right. So next weekend, that's right. So Claudia, because I'm getting my vaccine on Friday, and because of how much I got rocked last time by the vaccine, I just decided that I'm going to hold off on the weekend episodes next week in order to just to avoid me having to just say at the last moment that we're not doing them.
Totally understandable.
However,
see you in 2 weeks.
however, Claudia, you might like this, but in 2 weeks, and if you haven't checked out the Remarcus app, like remarcus.com, our schedule is up through the end of season 2. And the last weekend, I believe it's the weekend of 22nd and 23rd, I'm actually going to do a double feature that morning. So we're going to actually do an 8 a.m. and then we're going to go right into the next episode at 8:45. We're not going to do a post show right then, and then we're going to do our post show at the end of that second episode. We're going to do that both on the 22nd, Saturday the 22nd, and Sunday the 23rd, in addition to the 7 p.m. episodes that night as well. So those 2 days, we'll have 3 episodes those days, and that will actually end season 2 on that Sunday. And then we're going to actually take a full hiatus week off, so that next week we're not going to be watching any episodes, but we're going to probably do some just community events through the week. We'll do some fun stuff on Friday. That next Friday, I already have a scheduled happy hour. I'm probably going to schedule something else for international folks, like at a time that's really great for you guys. And I'll probably poll to make sure that I'm picking the right time, because if it's going to be something like specifically to allow international folks to join, I want you all to have a say in what's the best time for that. We've talked about potentially that week watching the unaired pilot. I have a link to that that was sent to me by Regina, in fact. So we may do that. We might do this thing that I was talking about where we'll do an event, where we just talk about all the episodes, like one by one, that we've seen up until now and rate them. So that week we'll be still doing things. It's just I want to hold off on watching the series so that we can get that feeling of we're waiting for the next season to drop.
The happy hour is the day after my birthday, so that's exciting. I'll get to spend the day after my birthday with you guys, so I'm excited. Very cool.
John, is your vaccination shot on the 14th? Is that what you're?
Yeah, it's on the 14th, and last time I got mine on a Friday, I remember that I got it on Friday, and then remember we were still doing those middle of the night episodes, and at 3 a.m., that same day, so Saturday 3 a.m., I was already struggling to get through the episode. And then the next day I canceled the 7 p.m. one, because I was just I can't do that. I believe I did come back on Sunday, but I was still not feeling it. It wasn't until Monday that I felt like I was back,
Yeah,
really.
just careful, because I had side effects for a whole week, so I hope you're feeling much better.
I'm worried, because I've heard people say that the second one is worse than the first.
My joints are already killing me.
I just want my first one. I just want a vaccine.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I'm still waiting for my first one as well.
Yeah, it's different over here. And look at them, obviously, I'm only 21, so I'm in like the bottom age group.
Sherry, is it the neck? My neck was just killing me. Like just the joint neck pain was just ugh.
No, it's my knees mostly right now. I had my neck surgery in January. I'm thankful that that's not where I'm feeling it, because that would have been the end of me.
Right.
Okay. In his hands and stuff, or like they were really like he felt it in his knuckles and everything.
Hey, Cara.
Sorry. Hey, John, are we postponing the 15th?
Hey, Cara, would you mind muting your microphone? We can hear some background noise. Thank you. What was the question?
Oh, I was just wondering, are we wanting to postpone the 14th because of your shot also, that Friday night, or how are you feeling about that?
No, I'll be fine that Friday night. But the side effects of the vaccine don't start to really kick in until late in the evening. You know, like I'll be getting that vaccine only a few hours before the 7 p.m. There's just no way that the side effects will have already kicked in by then.
Yeah,
I had mine done. It was 9-something this morning.
Yeah. It's usually about like 12 hours that you start to like. Oh, you got yours 9 this morning?
Yeah.
And where are you? You're on the East Coast?
Yes. And it's almost 1 now. So
right.
It hit me pretty quick. And I don't know if it's very, very moist out right now. It's humid and rainy. So that's
I've also seen people with the same conditions as who get hit with it very, very quickly, and I do think that's an EDS thing.
It could be. Both of us have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yeah, I have friends who have it, who've had their vaccine over here, and they got hit straight away, because obviously our immune system is completely different to a normal immune system, so that's probably why it's hitting you so badly so quickly.
I've also read that if you've had COVID, that it hits you especially hard because your body. Well, I had COVID. Both Babsy and I had it. So we apparently what I've heard is that it's bad because your body thinks that it's getting it again, and it fights really
COVID,
hard.
And I wasn't sick with it. I did lose my sense of smell permanently. I wasn't sick with it, but I don't know. I'll have to wait and see what happens if I ever get it. It's probably going to be July when I get mine.
Oof. Yeah, Europe is slow.
Well, they have a good system in place. Like all our vulnerable are fully vaccinated, and everyone over 50 is fully vaccinated. But obviously,
Babsy's mother is not, and she's retired. I mean, so I don't really know what's going on with.
I mean, my argument is that I personally felt like education staff should have been vaccinated, considering we can't social distance. But I'm just patiently waiting. But unfortunately, I just fall into that young age bracket, which is going to be July. No, sorry, they're hoping by the end of July everyone will have their vaccine, but that seems a long time away.
Right. All right. I will see all of you very soon. Please feel free to stick around and hang out with one another if you'd like, and chat more. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Bye, John.